Hello and welcome to the Bigger Boat Podcast. We're the movie podcast where we go through Steven Spielberg's back catalogue, one film at a time. I'm Luke, thank you for joining us this week, and as always I'm joined by a highly advanced artificial podcaster. The JoBot XP comes equipped with a banter drive, a chat processing unit, and a joke jack. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I should really be called Gigolo Joe because that is the name of the Jude Law character.
It is the name of the... Yeah, I did think about saying that, but I didn't know how to... I didn't want to make it too sexy.
You don't want to reveal that I'm a gigolo, do you? So
no, exactly.
Keep that quiet.
It's not very on brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to make the intro too sexy, so I thought I'd do that one.
Yeah.
I just want to focus on your personality rather than your
sexy voice.
Sexy voice and exploits.
Yeah.
Well, you do have a bit of a sexy voice at the moment because you're profoundly unwell.
That's right.
Yeah. Because you're sweating and pale in front of me.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
How are you anyway, apart from...
My sinus infection.
Being on death's door.
Yeah. I'm good. It's really nice to leave my house.
Leave the toilet.
Leave my bed in the toilet. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, lovely to have you here in my house.
Isn't winter great? Yeah.
Staying over in my bedroom. Leaving your infection behind. Appreciate it.
Staying in your bedroom? It's news to me.
Yeah, Julia's upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah, so we should probably tell the listener that this is we're filming this just before Christmas, so it's what is it, December the 15th today?
Yeah.
It's 10 days before Christmas, so everything's a bit Christmassy in the house.
It is.
Are you feeling particularly Christmassy at the moment, Jerry?
I am, because of my couple of days that I had to spend in bed. I watched things like Love Actually, and I watched the Shaun the Sheep movie.
Was that your last film?
Actually really good. No, it's not my last film.
Oh, is it? Okay,
No. And then I sort of managed to make it back downstairs after a couple of days, and I caught the end of the first Home Alone as well.
Very good.
Very Christmassy as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was like, oh yeah, I've actually forgot Christmas was happening, even though I've just been snowed under at work. Snowed under at work. There you go.
So what was the last film that you watched?
It was... Now, it's quite good if you are aware there isn't much plot to it. It's called Final Portrait.
Okay.
It's about...
I've not heard of this.
He's more famous as a sculptor. A guy called Giacometti.
Okay. Like an Italian guy, or?
Yeah, one of his parents was Italian.
Giacometti.
But he lived in Paris. You know, he knew Picasso and all this kind of stuff. He's a real guy.
Okay.
And yeah, we studied him when I did art A level and all this kind of stuff, because he's quite a distinctive character. A distinctive style. You've probably seen them actually in Tate Modern and stuff. They're very tall, very thin men.
Okay.
Very thummy looking clay, and then they're cast in bronze or whatever else.
Yes, that does sound familiar.
Yeah. So his painting style looks very similar. Very thin people. Now, Final Portrait is directed by, do you know the actor Stanley
Tucci?
Tucci,
yeah. The Tooch. Yeah,
the Tooch.
I know the Tooch.
He's bald. He's quite a good actor actually, quite versatile.
Yeah. No, he's really good.
Yeah, so he directed this, and it stars Geoffrey Rush.
Okay. Who
looks and acts a lot like him whenever I've seen any little clips of... There's not that much footage of him actually at work, but of what I have seen, it looks... He's got it bang on, the money.
Okay.
And although, there's not huge plot revelations and all this kind of stuff, it's based on the diary of this guy who did sit for him, having his portrait done.
Okay.
As I say, he's predominantly a sculptor, but he did do the odd painting. Mm-hmm. And it's about the frustrating process, which is he makes a few marks, and then he's so neurotic and stuff, he'll paint over it by the end of the day, and then the cycle will just go on and on and on.
Who plays the guy who sat for him?
I'm not sure. I don't really recognise him for very much. Mm. Yeah, it's a good film if you don't expect a huge amount of plot, because he's just such an eccentric character.
Is it is it trying to explain sort of his work or process, or is it just...
It's a character piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Because he is eccentric. His attitudes to money are just...
I have
unbelievable.
This is ringing a bells. I think I heard a Wittertainment episode where Simon Mayo interviewed Stanley Tucci about this movie.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So I have heard
I do remember seeing him do the rounds and stuff. He was on Graham Norton talking about it. And
this was earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it is on Netflix. It's come out really quickly and stuff. It's only an hour and a half, so think of it as
I will definitely
think of it as I don't expect much plot. I've got an hour and a half to fill my time.
Yep.
It's definitely worth it, because he's just so odd. He's just such a strange character.
Yeah. That's probably his directorial debut, isn't it?
I think so.
Probably would be, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine he's done plays and stuff like that before, because he's quite a stage guy, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How about you? Have you watched a film this week?
I have watched film. I watched a film last night, actually, on, again, another one that's on Netflix. Andy Serkis's directorial debut called Breathe. Have you heard of it at all?
Yes.
So this
Andrew
is
Garfield.
Andrew Garfield and Claire Foy.
Yeah.
Premise of this being Andrew Garfield, they're a young couple who get married, and while in Kenya, he falls ill and becomes paralysed, and it becomes apparent that he's got polio, and he's got an irreversible paralysis and needs to be on a ventilator for the rest of his life. So he has a machine that breathes for him.
Yeah.
And the story then evolves about him being obviously very distraught about it, coming to terms with it, and through the sort of the perseverance of his wife, Claire Foy, manages to be one of the first people to ever leave a hospital in a chair with a portable ventilator, and becomes an advocate for disability rights.
Yes.
Which it all happened really recently.
So did he actually invent the iron lung, or whatever? Do they call it the iron lung, the thing which makes it possible
we
to
don't
breathe?
use iron lungs anymore in medicine, but historically, back in the 60s or so, and the 50s, there's even a scene where he goes to visit one of the state of the art polio ventilator places, and people are just stacked on top of each other in these futuristic sort of looking pods where you can just see their heads sticking out the walls.
Yes, yeah.
And it just looks awful. Like there's no life at all.
Yeah.
And it's based on a true story, so it's based on these couple who actually did these things. And it is quite harrowing to think that this is how these people were treated, and people thought it was impossible and didn't even try to get these people out of hospital because they thought they would die. But some people were very willing to take the risk of them dying to have some quality of life.
Yeah.
So the premise was very, very interesting. He didn't invent the portable chair. He had a friend who invented it for him.
Yeah.
The execution of the whole thing is fine. The first few scenes while they get him to have polio feel very, very rushed. They sort of jump from scene to scene very, very quickly to try and get the message across, which makes it feel a little bit jumpy. The middle bit's quite good as he sort of comes to terms with things. And then there's no real spoiler to say that, he does die eventually at the end, but after 20, 30 years or so of living with this disease, the final scenes, as he's sort of becoming more unwell and coming to terms with it, it drew it out quite a bit.
I really...
And,
I remember watching the trailer and thinking it was trying quite hard to be a sort of tearjerker, uplifting kind of...
Yeah, and the whole sort of schmaltziness of it made it feel a bit like a TV movie. Almost. Yeah. But it is elevated by the fact you've got, Andrew Garfield and Claire Foy, who are great actors in it. Yeah. So it's worth checking out, I guess. I would never revisit this again. Yeah. It's a middle of the road 3-star movie, definitely.
Yeah, where did you see it?
It's on Netflix.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I'll probably check that out.
Yeah. So
seems like a Sunday afternoon movie.
It was a Sunday afternoon movie.
Yeah.
It was fine. Yeah.
Broadly fine, as you always say.
Broadly fine, exactly. Yeah. But more excitingly this week at work, it was Christmas jumper week. It was Christmas jumper day at work this week. Yeah, exactly. I didn't really know how to judge it. How out there do you go with a Christmas jumper when you work in a hospital and could potentially be giving
offensive.
Bad news to people?
Yes.
So I was really worried. So I actually put on a modest Christmas jumper.
Right.
And then I went there and I walked in the car park past one of the palliative care consultants.
Yeah.
So these are the consultants who work at the hospice. He had a bright red snowman on him.
Really?
Like a big nose. So I didn't need to worry at all.
Yeah.
But I did wonder how some of his conversations would have gone that day.
So what did you wear?
No, I just had this Christmas jumper which was like white and green.
Okay.
Which had lots of patterns on it, but no giant snowman or anything like that.
Okay.
It's very fashionable, Joey, as well you know.
With it being Christmas, almost as if this was a fantastic segue that we planned, which we absolutely did not.
Yeah.
Luke, I have a Christmas gift for you.
Well, this is exciting.
I'm just passing it to him now.
Oh my god. I've got a Jurassic Park burgundy Christmas jumper.
Yes, you have.
This is so exciting. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to have to tweet a photo of this to see what I'm seeing. This is great. I'm going to put it on. But before I do that, if you look under the Christmas tree, Joey, there might be a little present for you as well.
Really? It's got my name on it. Very exciting. We bought each other exactly the same thing.
I was a bit worried. It is different though. But it is a Christmas jumper. This is completely unintentional that we've bought each other essentially the same thing.
We have almost exactly the same thing. This is going to make one hell of a picture.
Describe it for the listener.
So yes, this Christmas jumper with a shark at the bottom and it says Jaws at the top, and it's got a couple of mini the ship, which is called the Orca, at the top, and a shark with an open mouth at the top. And a lady swimming away at
some lovely ladies.
It's absolutely brilliant.
We haven't really mentioned what we're talking about today, have we?
No, we haven't. No. It almost doesn't matter.
It's fine. Yeah. So we are talking about AI, which is the reason why I implied you were a robot at the start of the podcast.
So we've reached a new decade.
Yes, the noughties, isn't it?
Yeah, into the noughties, 2001.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're way over the halfway mark now, aren't we?
We are. Yes.
Yeah. I forgot to mention something. So in the last episode of Saving Private Ryan, we forgot to mention a few key points about it. The fact that it was the second time he's won an Oscar.
Oh, yes.
We didn't even talk about the fact that, he won an Oscar for Saving Private Ryan.
No, we didn't.
No.
We did manage to fill it with quite a lot of content, though, so I don't know if we would have time to fit it in. But
it was great content, wasn't it?
It sure was.
And but it didn't win Best Film, but it won Best Director. Do you remember which won Best Film that year?
I can't think what would be.
Shakespeare in Love.
Shakespeare in Love. Yes.
That won it in the set. And before he moved on to do AI, so he got a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Directors Guild of America. And he also got, in recognition of sort of Spielberg's frequent filming in the UK, the Queen awarded him a KBE.
Really?
A Knight of the British Empire, yeah. He's not allowed to call himself Sir Stephen because he's not a British subject.
Yeah.
But he can put KBE after his name.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's very young to get a Lifetime Achievement Award as well.
Well, to be
He's
fair...
only middle-aged.
He's only middle-aged. Well, how old would he have been at that time? So...
What would he be?
50, maybe? Late 40s, 50?
Yeah, late 40s.
This is probably his, 18th movie or something like that.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's so impressive. Most people...
I mean, he's already exceeded, let's say, what Kubrick's volume of output.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, that's my point. Is that, I mean, most people... Basically, I've heard there's a rule in the industry that's basically no one should ever make a film, properly for cinematic release until the age of 30, at least.
Yeah.
So by which time, even if he was 50, most people in that time will have only made 6 films or something.
That's true. That's true. He was a wonder kid, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
You said it yourself in a previous episode that Ridley Scott, I think maybe on our Hook episode, that Ridley Scott didn't start making films till he was in his 40s or so.
Yeah, Alien was his first movie.
Yeah.
No, sorry. The Duelist was his first movie. Yeah, he was 40, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Advertising before that.
And and I'm actually quite excited because I've never I can see you've bought AI as a DVD round, but I've never actually seen AI.
That's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited.
I haven't really gone full into a lot of the spoilers or about what happens because I want to keep it sort of relatively pure and unspoiled for myself.
Plot-wise,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I have reading a bit about it and knowing a lot of the criticisms that have been sort of thrown Spielberg's way about him as a filmmaker, about being too sentimental, about being too schmaltzy.
Yeah.
And how Kubrick was viewed beforehand as well, because this was a movie that Kubrick gave to Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
I'm really quite interested to see how those two meld.
Yes.
And whether we see this weird love child movie between Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. See, obviously, when this came out at the cinema, I was still quite young.
Yeah.
So it's
we were 15, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, before you start getting really geeky about one specific thing. I mean, you're busy with school exams and stuff, aren't you? So I went to the cinema just kind of hoping it was going to be a good sci-fi movie. I didn't really know it used to be a Kubrick production and all of this kind of stuff. That kind of stuff was actually quite... Do you remember what it was like? Because remember, DVDs weren't even that prevalent then. We were still sort of in the crossover between VHS and DVD.
Yes, we were, weren't we? Yeah.
And now it's really easy to research a film because you can watch the behind-the-scenes special features on a DVD, or you can read the Wikipedia page. That was actually quite hard to come by in the UK anyway. I don't know if they ever used to broadcast those kind of behind-the-scenes things in America, but it's quite difficult to do a bit of research unless you were really, really determined.
People came to this knowing any of the background at all.
Yeah.
People came to it just saying, "Oh, this is Steven Spielberg's latest movie."
Yeah.
Because I don't know if Kubrick was on any of the posters or the DVD, the advertising.
I don't even know if he gets a big sort of story developed by Stanley Kubrick. I don't even know if he gets a credit.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really really forward because this is one of the sort of the big omissions in my sort of Spielberg back catalogue history that I just haven't seen at all. So I think we'll talk about this a bit more as we go on. But I thought I've given you another quiz.
Have you? We haven't done one for a while.
I haven't done one for a while, exactly. But I thought I'd do it on Kubrick. So this is called When We Quiz Upon a Star.
Okay.
Because I know it's Pinocchio sort of based.
Yes, it is.
This whole film.
Yes.
So that's why it's called that. Okay. And because it's not been for a while, I've gone deep Kubrick for you to answer about.
Okay. Mind you, I am unwell. I feel a little bit disadvantaged, but
all right. Okay. Fine. Make your excuses now. These are actually quite difficult. Some of them I got from the BFI. So
okay.
That's sort of the level we're talking about here. Right, you have 10 points for this. Okay, first question. So, which room is Danny warned to stay out of at the Overlook Hotel in The Shining?
Now, do you know, apparently the rooms are different between the Stephen King book and the movie?
Yes, so I'm talking about the movie.
Yeah, obviously.
And there was a... obviously, Luke. And there was a documentary movie about, like, weird interpretations of The Shining.
Yeah.
Called this room name.
It's something like, is it 257?
So close.
237.
Yes, 237. I will give you that.
I knew it was one of those two. Okay, cool.
It's room 237.
Yeah.
Is the one. Yeah, very good. Okay, next one. Apart from Spartacus, which other Kubrick film does a character jokingly claim, I'm Spartacus? I can't remember. So I have seen this film, but I can't remember the moment in it. But I thought it was quite a good question because there are two Kubrick films in which people say the line "I'm Spartacus."
Clockwork Orange?
No, it's Lolita.
Oh, Lolita.
Yeah, I don't know the context of which, but apparently a character in there jokingly says.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have seen it. I don't remember.
It was been about 14 years ago. I saw Lolita. Which is Kubrick's longest film?
Is it Barry Lyndon?
No, it's Spartacus.
Is it?
3 hours 18 for Spartacus.
Oh.
That is a monster of a film.
Never mind, I'm Spartacus. I'm tired. I'm ready for bed.
Great link. You sound like a local radio DJ. Okay, question 4. What is the password to gain access to the secret party in Eyes Wide Shut?
I've seen Eyes Wide Shut once.
Okay.
About a year after it came out. I don't know. Prawn toast.
What sort of sex parties have you been to? It's not the back of a Chinese. The back of the Golden Inn. Prawn toast. Come in. It's Fidelio.
I was never going to get that.
Okay, fine. Okay, to the nearest 5 minutes, how many minutes pass in 2001 A Space Odyssey before the first line of dialogue?
1 hour, 5 minutes.
Before any dialogue at all?
Yeah.
It's only 25 minutes.
Oh.
Sorry.
Does that include the monkeys making noises? Does that count as dialogue?
Well, I haven't seen 2001 in a while, so I don't know.
Okay.
That was one of the BFI questions, so take it up with the BFI. What is the profession of the hero in Kubrick's early film, Killer's Kiss?
He's a boxer.
Very good.
There you go.
He's a boxer, yeah.
I was going to say gangster, but I remember suddenly, he's a boxer and he is fighting against the gangster, so yeah.
Very good. So you got 2 points so far, and the last one, 4 points are up for grabs. Okay, so you can really not embarrass yourself on this, okay?
All right, cool.
So Kubrick never won an Oscar for Best Director.
Yeah.
But was nominated 4 times. What are those 4 films? You get 4 guesses.
Eyes Wide Shut?
No.
Lolita?
No.
The Shining?
No.
Oh my
god! One more guess to salvage an embarrassing point. Oh, please can you just strike out on all of them? That would be great.
Barry Lyndon?
Yes, 1.
Okay.
The others were Dr. Strangelove.
Okay, yeah.
2001 Space Odyssey and A Clockwork Orange. Got nominated for Oscars for.
There you go.
Sorry. 3 out of 10.
I'm ill.
Fair enough. Cool. Anything else you want to talk about before we watch the movie?
Just one very brief moment, just because it's very cool.
Cool.
I've got a message from my sister. She's just met Kenneth Branagh.
Did she actually?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, let me show you. She's had a picture taken with him, so...
So your sister actually approached him?
I don't know. I don't know.
I would just run away.
Yeah.
I couldn't, yeah. I'd get too embarrassed. What do you say to these people?
Some Shakespeare, I would say to them. But that's
Is this a Kenneth I see before me? That's how you start.
Very good.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be ashamed at all, Luke.
I was quite pleased with that. That is very cool. Yeah. No, I haven't met anyone famous recently.
Should we just mention briefly that, because we've mentioned the book a couple of times, because you've referenced The Complete Spielberg by Ian Freer
Yes.
a fair bit, and you said, I don't know what I'm going to do when we reach Saving Private Ryan, and that was last week, so...
It has been a nightmare that, in fact, I've had to actually do my research myself now and not rely on someone else's hard work.
Does it feel really odd? Because you do get used to like a certain author's way of giving across information and stuff, and it always feels a bit odd when you leave that behind and have to take another source.
Yeah, no, exactly. You get used to a format, and
the format of the book and stuff.
He also formats it in a very particular way that makes it quite useful, so you can sort of cherry pick some of the useful information, and also it signposts to other places to look for information or further stories about it. But yes, I've actually had to do work myself this time, and it's been very annoying. So I've got a new autobiography, so the latest 3rd edition of the Steven Spielberg official biography from Joseph McBride. But I mean, ultimately, yes, that gives you all of this stuff, gives you a really good background, but most of the stuff that we talk about is our own sort of stuff that we generate from actually seeing the movie ourselves, don't we?
Yeah. Well, hopefully, because basically anyone can do their own research, anyone could find the books.
Yes, exactly.
We're trying to implant our emotive aspect.
Exactly, our perspective on what it sort of meant to us. Yeah.
You made the point a couple of episodes ago that we've now caught up with ourselves. So with the Hook episode, that was the first Spielberg movie I saw.
Yes.
So now we're, quote unquote, sort of like contemporary to ourselves, if you see what I mean. We're up to date we're now going back to the films that we remember.
Yes, true, we are. But it is weird with Spielberg. I think the ones that, even then, the ones that I would have seen as a teenager are the older ones. They're the ones that a lot of people have the Spielberg-y nostalgia for.
Yeah.
Because as we come into this sort of phase of his filmmaking, yes, he does do the occasional popcorn blockbuster that he's famous for, but a lot of it is very history inflected. A lot of it is it's a bit different. What he's looking at, he's looking more at human nature, I think, rather than that sort of growing up, coming of age stuff.
Yeah.
So I think the stuff that we saw, which came out when we were in our teens and early 20s, doesn't resonate for me in that same way that his still older films did.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense.
Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of people feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. It's an interesting thing, because it's not like... You do get the odd film where you read a review and it will say an instant classic. I remember Jonathan Ross saying that about Up, that he had gone to see the Pixar movie Up. And he said,
right. Yeah.
Don't use it very often, but it is an instant classic. And I think he's absolutely right. It's just a strange feeling, isn't it? Because you're like, I just wonder, so I remember going to watch AI in, 2001 and be like, could that be a classic that everyone talks about now?
Yeah.
It's just kind of an interesting point of view. It's not like saying like, oh, everything we make in living memory is not as good.
Yeah.
But you see it slightly differently, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, it's true. The very term a classic implies age, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And maturity that comes with age.
Yeah.
Because it's those... it will play on the themes that it doesn't matter at what time you've seen it.
Yeah. It means it's still relevant to whatever themes were in the past.
Exactly. And I think sometimes it's a bit presumptive to say something's a classic without giving it the test of time.
Yes.
Because... it's like one of those things where when you see a new movie and it comes out, you sort of want to get the feel of what other people thought about it before you put your views out there. In case you go, this is an absolute classic. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And then realise it was Justice League.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone else is panning it. I do not think Justice League is a classic. That was just... and so that's why sometimes... you can go to older movies that people have told you are classics and go, yeah, that was a classic. Because you're sort of safe in the knowledge that someone else knows more than you. The
collective unconscious almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're joining the masses, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
I want to feel part of the crowd. So.
Yeah. I respect the man who thinks Justice League is a classic. They're wrong, but absolutely.
All right, what a great way to end our intro on that note.
Shall we go watch the movie?
Yeah, it's no Justice League, is it? But we'll see you shortly.
Yeah, hasn't got a Batman in it. So we're back.
We are back.
How was that?
It's very long.
It is long, isn't it?
Yes. We're now recording this quite late in the evening,
just
because it is such a long film.
So excuse the yawns. It's interesting though. I guess in 2001 this was going to be the first film which tried to deal with the concept of artificial intelligence.
Would you say it's the first film?
Well, to ask those philosophical questions about what is human, what is machine, where do you draw the line?
Don't forget Blade Runner, 1982.
I'm forgetting Blade Runner.
Remember the whole thing about
Yes.
do androids dream of electric sheep?
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford, is he
Okay,
an android?
scratch.
Is he
Yeah,
human?
No, I saying that, yes, I'm completely wrong. Scratch that entirely. I guess what I was... So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Blade Runner did ask that, and I guess this question has been asked in science fiction novels. But it still felt ambitious, this...
There are bits which remind me massively of Blade Runner, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Set pieces and the red light district and his Jude Law's coat and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's very Fred Astaire-ish, but yeah, the look and tone of it, very neon and all that kind of stuff is very...
I guess I came to it, I was viewing it as a sort of precursor to more films I've seen recently, like Ex Machina.
Yes.
And the new Westworld series as well.
I haven't seen the new Westworld series, but I know what it is. It's cowboys, cowboy robots, isn't it?
No aliens, just cowboy. Yeah. Just robots. So I sort of I can see how I'm seeing it as sort of like a marker of how that has influenced other things.
It has influenced other things, but let's not forget Westworld was a series whenever it was in the 70s.
True, but it wasn't asking the philosophical questions.
Right.
I think that the new series has now focused its central set pieces on.
Yes. I'm interested to know because I'm not too sure this film does ask those philosophical questions. I'm just not sure it made that much of a mark for you to be able to say right now this has changed the way they've adapted something like Westworld from what it was, a TV series in the 70s or whatever, to something new and philosophical now. I don't think it made that much of a imprint.
No, sure.
To the creators of...
Good pun there, yeah. Nice segue. I felt the first like 30 minutes of it was setting it up to be like a sort of philosophical drama about what is real. At what point does David transition from being something that is mechanical to something that is sentient, and what rights they may have because of that. But then it turns... When he gets abandoned in the woods, it changes and it becomes a sort of fairy tale adventure.
Yes, what's really odd, this is a very strange way to do it, and I would almost say if you were going to do these two things, I would do it the other way around. It's basically a horror film which becomes a Disney movie.
It does start off like a horror film,
doesn't it?
And I wrote that down.
Like Children of the Corn and things like that, where Children of the Damned, where they've all got blonde hair and eyes just very, very uncanny and robot-like.
Yes,
and then it tries to become incredibly sweet.
Yeah.
If anything, I would do it the other way around. Start it as a light-hearted Disney movie and make it become creepy because you'd have a much stronger effect.
Yeah.
You're constantly fighting the Disney sweet aspect, which comes after the first third of the movie.
But I guess because I agree, if you were trying to make a horror movie, that's how you do it. But Spielberg isn't trying to make a horror movie here.
I guess he's trying to take the horror out of it.
Yes, but you're absolutely right. The way it's framed and the way it's directed in the first 20 minutes, with his uncanniness, his sort of very roboticness, and
his almost human but not quite aspects,
is played for creepiness because it's meant to unsettle the mum.
Yes,
and so that was his intention, and then it changes.
Yeah.
So
I made the note that in that first third, I swear it's not just David's behaviour. David is Haley Joel Osment, by the way. He is, we should point out,
we're assuming you've seen you've seen this one.
Haley Joel Osment is the young boy from The Sixth Sense, etc. He's a mecha child, as a robot who is sort of programmed and he was designed to love his mum unconditionally. And his mum is the one that sort of sets the certain code that he needs to be given in order to fall sort of solely in love with her. Yes. To make the bond, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she has is the one that sort of triggers that. And they said that they told her, once you do that, there is no going back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but my point and the note that I wrote down was, I swear that uncanniness doesn't just come from David and his single creepiness. Yeah. There's something unsettling about the slight futuristic world that that is in.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't quite know if the mum actually wants to fall in love with the idea of having a mechanised child.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The whole thing feels really off.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's not like the mum is coming at it from a genuine place. She is unsettled and she remains unsettled.
But I guess,
by the whole
but
thing.
that is a purposeful directorial choice in order to do that.
That's true.
So my question is, why? What was Spielberg and Kubrick trying to elicit out of us as an audience? What kind of questions is he asking us, and what's he trying to say? And I'm not really sure.
Yeah, it's in that classic, sort of sci-fi arena, isn't it? Yeah, questioning what it is to be human.
Yes.
The sense of time.
Yeah.
And space.
I mean, maybe it is meant to just make us ask questions about, like you said, what it is to be human. What are actually
the effect of time on childhood and things like that.
And actually, in the very first scene, when William Hurt, the creator of this robotic technology, is explaining he's pitching David to his boardroom.
Yes.
The question, I think the very moral question gets actually said out loud by one of his boardroom executives.
Yeah.
And they ask, what is the human responsibility towards artificial intelligence?
Yeah.
If they can love, what is the human reaction appropriate for that? Can they love them back?
Yeah. See, I read that down as well. There's huge aspects of this film which feels very, very much like a lecture theatre almost, and that boardroom scene does almost seem like a lecture theatre, doesn't it? And like it feels like the themes are very on the nose. They themselves ask the question which it feels like they want the audience to ask.
Yes, yeah, I know what you mean.
This is a good quote that I heard from. I literally just happened to chance upon from Kubrick, and I'll read it to you.
Yeah.
And see if we can somehow come to the conclusion as to why this feels quintessentially like a Kubrick thing to say, and perhaps from that point of view we can work out why Spielberg is so different.
Yeah.
So, hang on.
Okay.
If you really want to communicate something, even if it's just an emotion or an attitude, let alone an idea, the least effective and least enjoyable way is directly. It only goes in about an inch. But if you can get people to the point where they have to think a moment about what it is you're getting at, and then discover it, the thrill of discovery goes right through the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it does feel like that's almost Stanley Kubrick's directing style in a nutshell, because there are some very big ambiguities in Kubrick movies.
Yeah.
And they do tend to stay with you because they're striking images which makes your brain kind of constantly sort of tick over. Like, where is this going?
Yeah.
What's the point? Almost like, what's the point of this often?
Yeah. I wrote down actually a very similar quote, which is slightly different from that from Kubrick as well.
Yeah.
Should we talk about why we're talking about Kubrick to start off with?
Yes, I think that might be a good idea, yeah.
Fine. Okay. So before we get into like the ins and outs of the movie, which I should probably say I did enjoy. I did really like it.
I do really like this movie, yeah.
I think it's a very good Spielberg movie. And I don't want to be too down on it, but I completely agree. There is a bit of a disjoint between the beginning and then the middle and then the final third as well.
Yeah.
They're these three separate acts which don't seem particularly linked hugely thematically.
No.
So this film was developed as a Kubrick movie, and it was developed probably in the mid-80s or so. I think it's based on a short story from the late 60s, a science fiction story by a guy called Brian Aldiss, which is called Super Toys Last All Summer Long. And Kubrick bought the rights to this shortly afterwards, and then was trying to develop it. And Kubrick got loads of writers on board, multiple people to try, various different science fiction writers to try and actually make this into some sort of coherent story.
Yeah, one was Arthur C. Clarke, right?
Arthur C. Clarke is one of them. Ian Watson, who is actually credited with the main screen story on this.
Right.
Sarah Maitland, Bob Shaw, who did writing duties on 1941 as well.
Yeah.
They were all involved, try and take a tackle at the script. I don't think anything really stuck. The only thing that really came out of that was a sort of this 90-page screen story, it's called, from Ian Watson, and that was the thing that we're happy with.
Yeah.
Then Kubrick commissioned loads of images. A comic book artist was hired to make lots of storyboards for potential shots of the film, but he felt the visual effects weren't quite there.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I have noticed, having done a little bit of research of Kubrick over the years, he does seem to have a bit of a habit of doing that. I think 2001, A Space Odyssey, I think he turned into a novel. He had all his ideas. He had it turned into a novel first.
Yes.
And then adapted the novel into the screenplay and then into the movie. It seems to be like he likes working that way round, which is almost the backwards way to do it. You know, often before people were able to watch VHSs or whatever and have their own little versions at home, people would have to read the novelizations of movies and stuff, and that's how they relived their cinematic experience.
Kubrick did work in a weird way. He worked so slowly. I did hear a story once of like a guy who worked on Eyes Wide Shut, his last movie, and his job was to photograph doorways throughout London just to find the right doorway to use in a particular 7-second scene or something like that.
Yeah.
And he spent 2 years photographing doorways. And I think it was the artist. I think it was the author, the journalist John Ronson, who went through some of Spielberg's like files and found huge boxes
full of Kubrick's files.
Kubrick's files in the Kubrick mansion.
Yeah.
After he died, and he was invited there, and found like boxes and boxes just full of photographed doorways.
Yeah.
So this is...
And then I heard when they ended up filming that scene, they built it in a studio.
Yeah, they built it in the studio. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
I've heard Kubrick say, as a director, he didn't know what he wanted. All he knew is what he didn't want.
Yeah.
So I guess that's his style again. You know, you just need to know all your options, and then he knows the ones he doesn't want, and he knows the one that he does as well.
Yeah.
After he's had all his options.
Yeah. And then I think it was Kubrick himself, not Steven Spielberg, who added the Pinocchio moments.
Right.
And he felt this was turning, the story, its natural progression was turning into more of a fairy tale. And felt it was becoming more something that Steven Spielberg would be more suited to directing rather than him.
You mentioning that, have you seen, because there's a little documentary, or maybe it was on the DVD actually.
Yeah.
There is a behind the scenes documentary where it features Arthur C. Clarke, and that's how I knew he was one of the writers.
Yeah.
Because his reaction to the whole Pinocchio angle is not good.
Yeah, really.
It's like, he goes, "Oh my word, Pinocchio!" And his head goes down, and he puts, his fingers between the bridge of his nose.
God.
Pinocchio!
Where's he from?
It's brilliant.
18th century.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Now, one of the other writers I mentioned, Sarah Maitland, said that when Kubrick was talking about this movie, he didn't call it AI, he called it Pinocchio.
Really?
The entire time. This was on his mind. This is what he wanted to make. But Kubrick was famously very, very secretive. So Spielberg talked about Kubrick at his memorial service, and apparently they had a good relationship. They only met a few times, but they spoke on the phone quite a bit. And Kubrick apparently always charged collect calls.
Really?
Apparently, he said that in his memorial speech. And I think they met first in 1979, because Spielberg was doing some set work, scouting out sound stages for Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they were filming The Shining. So they met there and eventually formed a friendship where Kubrick would want to hear all about Spielberg's projects, but he wouldn't give away much himself until the mid-80s, in 1985, where he told him about AI.
Right.
So Spielberg knew about this from like 16 years beforehand.
Yeah.
And because I think he had Spielberg in mind as someone that this is much more suited to, ended up wanting to involve him in process.
Yeah.
He kept on. So one of the other major issues was that the fact that visual effects weren't there in the mid-80s for what he wanted.
Yeah.
And did you know Kubrick commissioned people to build a real mechanical boy?
Really?
And
I can believe it.
Scientists had to build an actual mechanical robot boy, but it didn't go very well.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't. Technology wasn't there that it was a significant goer that it would make anything realistic.
Yeah.
And then he tried to make it with Joe Mazzello, the boy from Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Who played little Tim there.
Yeah.
But because Kubrick was so slow at making movies, he would have aged so significantly during it that it again, not feasible.
Yeah.
So he tried and tried and tried and then just said to Spielberg, "You do it," in the mid-90s. But he had other projects at the same time, so it took a back burner, and I don't think Spielberg wanted Kubrick producing him, simply because if you're making a movie, you want to make your movie. You don't want another amazing, distinctive filmmaker looking over your back the entire time.
Because, love him or hate him, Kubrick definitely has his own...
control freak.
Yeah, has his own way of doing stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So, so this was something in Kubrick's mind and was Kubrick's movie. And then he died in 1999, and Spielberg was approached again by Christine, Stanley Kubrick's widow, to make this movie. and he did without the pressure, of, well, there was a lot of pressure, I imagine, but without the sort of the real Kubrick over your shoulder looking. Yeah.
I see. Should we maybe go through it?
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult to talk about the whole movie as a whole. We've got some themes, just because it is so thematic, and there are lots of big philosophical questions that you can ask about it, that you can get bogged down in that. So, should we just talk through it, generally from the start to the beginning, to see what we think about that? That's probably the best way to structure it.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning, we've already talked about how we both thought it was quite horror-inflected.
Yeah.
Especially with the fact that David is often obscured with either light, or he's deformed in some way by the way you're seeing him through particular glass.
Yeah. Or we see him deformed, don't we?
And we see him actually deformed himself,
He eats and his mechanics sort of go a bit wrong, and his face sort of goes... Melts, slumps.
And I think we just got to give a shout out to Haley Joel Osment for an absolutely remarkable child performance throughout the entire thing. I think we said beforehand, I remember we said on the ET episode, Henry Thomas was probably our favourite child actor performance.
Yeah.
But do you think Haley Joel Osment's role was harder? Because with E.T.
Probably, as an acting challenge, it
probably is. And he does such a good job with it.
Yeah.
Because at least with E.T., he had E.T. there, he had, kids similar age to him around him to help.
Yeah.
He had something to form a bond to.
Yeah.
And he had to act within his own experience in reality.
Yeah.
Whereas this is entirely an alien robotic performance.
Exactly. And he does have to emote, and he does have to sort of cry and wail and all of this kind of stuff. But a step removed. So he doesn't really blink, does he, throughout the whole movie?
No, it's really creepy.
So even when he's wailing and crying and all of this kind of stuff, he is really genuinely emoting, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he's also doing this uncanny thing of sort of, not putting his hands to his face or anything like that, or blinking.
Yeah.
So it's an added layer to his performance.
Absolutely. And like that scene where he's laughing as well.
Yeah.
When he laughs at a noodle getting stuck on his mum's face.
Yeah.
He
laughs and abruptly stops.
Yes,
doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's very unnerving.
It's really, really unnerving.
And yet, weirdly, it's treated... See, this is what makes me feel uncomfortable with that whole first thing. And why I feel like it doesn't... It feels like it...
Because the score?
It isn't quite hitting the same points, which I feel like Spielberg wanted us to.
Yeah.
So Haley Joel Osment laughs, ha ha ha, stops.
Yeah.
And they look at each other. We, as a reaction, are like, oh, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
And yet they start laughing to each other.
Yeah.
The husband and wife.
Yes. And
then suddenly it's as if something's clicked in her mind, and she's like, maybe I will, what's it called? Imprinting.
Yeah.
Maybe I will imprint on him.
This creepy robot child.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Have you not just had the same experience that I've just witnessed?
Yeah.
Because that really puts me off, the idea of imprinting on this child and him having a unique bond with me.
And this is set in the future, isn't it? So
it is.
How have they never seen any horror movies ever? Like, this is how it starts.
Yeah.
It is a bit odd, isn't it? And because I mentioned the score there briefly as well. I found the score is quite light-hearted during that as well. It says, "Oh, isn't this fun? Isn't this a funny situation?" Rather than what you should have is the Jaws soundtrack in the background, which would be more fitting with it.
So it's things like that. Yeah, the mum's reaction to some of that uncanniness, and it's as if we're supposed to feel that she's falling in love with him, but you're like, how could you possibly? Like, the uncanniness there is... The creepiness outweighs any sort of potential love.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you know who wrote most of those first 20 minutes or so?
No.
So one of the things that I think Spielberg has been acutely aware of is his reputation for being a bit schmaltzy.
Yeah.
I've said the word schmaltzy a lot in this podcast, but it's almost like I've discovered it in a dictionary. But Spielberg has a reputation. We've talked about this beforehand for being a bit too on the nose sometimes, a bit too sentimental.
Yeah.
And he is very clear to point out in his interviews, actually, the sentimental stuff was Kubrick's. He put the darker stuff in.
Really?
Yeah, so anything that you think is very, very Spielbergian came directly from Kubrick. Either his dialogue or his storyboards or the story. The other stuff that's a bit darker, Spielberg put in. So the final scenes with the aliens, 2,000 years in the future, is Kubrick,
And not Spielberg.
not Spielberg. That happy ending
So
is
I
Kubrick.
made some notes on that. Okay,
Yeah.
well that kind of
And the beginning
throws my notes out a little bit.
And the beginning is Kubrick as well. And then this sort of fairy tale adventure bit is more, I think, Spielberg trying to piece him getting from A to B.
Yeah.
So he's got like a bookend for a movie, and he's had to fill in the pieces in between using some storyboards.
Fitted Blade Runner in between.
Exactly. Yes. No. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's interesting that you thought that. However, one of the major sort of Spielberg themes that you get, which is acutely aware of throughout the whole movie, but especially in the first half, is the relationship with child and parents.
Yeah.
So we know Spielberg has often absent father figures.
Yes.
Or abandonment issues,
Yes. So while we are talking about this, I'm going to talk about the point, which is exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
You've sort of thrown me a little bit by saying this is not the Spielbergy aspects, this is the Kubrick one.
Yeah.
Massive spoiler alert.
I think if you're listening now, it's fine.
Haley Joel Osment sort of like
gets fat.
He gets his wish to have a final day, doesn't he, with his mother?
Yes.
Gets to go back in time because the aliens can sort of grant his wish using her hair, as strange as that sounds.
Yes.
Psychologically, it's real sort of like, I don't want to say psychopathic, but it's quite, because it is a little bit Norman Bates, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very Norman Bates.
Okay, yeah, so let me just sort of like talk you through a couple of the moments. So I've written down possible very deep abandonment issues. He's it's very Freudian. He is constantly saying like, then you'll basically like love no one but me. Obviously he is the size and shape of a little boy. She is his mother. He thinks of her as his mother. He guides her by the hand to bed.
Yeah.
And
where are you going with this, Joe?
Where is Spielberg going with this? He then also has him laying in bed with her, next to her, holding his hands as he, quote, goes to the field of dreams or whatever.
Field of dreams?
Is that what they say? He goes to the place where dreams are made.
Whereas if you build it, he'll come. Yeah. Is that where you're going with this?
I love the fact that I said quote and then got the quote wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway. Very Freudian.
It is very Freudian.
Oedipus complex, classic stuff.
Yes, it is a bit Oedipal, isn't it? But I mean, ultimately, it's a boy's inability to make his mum happy, isn't it?
But I was thinking of it more of the point of view he can't move on.
Yes,
he's trapped in a boy's body, isn't he?
And he is. But
it's more from a psychological point of view rather than a physical one, isn't it? It's that he cannot psychologically move on from the dependency.
That's interesting. Yeah. But that does lead me to one of the problems I do have with David as the character, is the fact that if you're following him as a protagonist, he doesn't have an arc.
Yes.
He has one flat goal. He's been very on brand the entire time. He wants to be loved by his mum.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that continues as a flat line, as a flat motivation throughout the entire film.
Yes.
It doesn't change. It's what he wants, and that's it.
Yeah. And he basically gets what he wants.
He gets what he wants, for a day.
For a day, and then it ends.
Yes. So it's difficult to get on board with that.
Yes. When it's from the point of view of
But then maybe you're not meant to sympathise with him as much.
Well, the main theme is, can a human being fall in love with a robot and vice versa?
I guess is it asking us, can we get on board with his motivation?
Exactly.
Because...
So is it asking, as with him being a robot boy,
mm-hmm.
Is it the filmmakers asking us if we can love his story? Or, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
We as an audience, we as humans, can we love this machine?
Yes, yeah. No. That's the answer.
No is the answer. Because we don't relate to machines as well as we relate to other humans, so...
Because there is something generically false about...
Yeah. Generically uncanny.
Yeah.
They do not react the way we would react.
No.
It's just
which is why
nuances.
Which is why I think Ex Machina is such a good film, because it takes the concept, which is in this thing called the Turing test, the test which you administer to artificial intelligence in order to see whether they can think for themselves, or they have their own autonomy.
Yeah.
Where the robot Alicia Vikander is shown to be a robot to start off with, and you know she's a robot, and yet she still has to convince you that she is human.
Yeah.
Or has autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this doesn't really expose that at all.
Yeah.
The David doesn't pass the Turing test throughout the entire time, which means you are very aware that this is a robot, and there is definitely something subhuman. Well, I don't want to say subhuman because that makes it not uncanny or different about him.
Yeah.
But again, another question is, even if they are not, even if we do say that this is not a human, does that mean they still don't have rights?
Yeah.
Which is an interesting question as well.
It is.
Yeah.
I was very aware of this during the scenes where, you remember the flesh fair?
That was very uncomfortable, wasn't it?
It is very uncomfortable because
it reminded me a lot of Schindler's List.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it makes you question that whole sort of, you have to dehumanize something before you can kill it?
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff.
It did feel a bit right-wing, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was very Schindler's List, wasn't it?
The fact that,
dehumanization.
Exactly. They're caged. You've got a baying mob wanting these things to be tortured. Poor Chris Rock robot died.
I know. Blasted out of cannon.
Oh, yeah. I think this is quite un-Spielberg-y, and this is where Kubrick's influence comes into more prominence, in the fact that I felt the whole film had a really bleak view of humanity.
Yes.
Really bleak.
Yes.
So very misanthropic, in the fact that on the very beginning, the first voiceover narration tells us that humans have destroyed the planet. Climate change has, happened, and a lot of the major cities have been flooded, and these are the things that have had to happen. The world's been destroyed. We've got sex cities and love robots. And the corporations have begun to commercialise love.
Yes.
It had a pretty bleak outlook on the world.
Yeah, it
is. And there weren't that many redeeming features, and there weren't actually that many humans with that many redeeming features.
No.
I don't think there were any human characters with redeeming features.
Yeah.
Everyone was, just very, very deeply flawed.
See, because that's a 2001 theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
The movie 2001. It's going to get confusing because this AI came out in 2001. The Kubrick movie 2001 is about, the last half of it is about, how the neurotic onboard computer system is more neurotic than the humans on board. He suddenly gets a massive sort of inferiority complex that he's going to be turned off and have no power.
Yeah. But with the sort of the actions of the humans, but with this film, the one sort of pure emotion in this, the robot who has the pure emotion of love, which is driving him, is slowly driven to despair and ends up sort of throwing himself off a building.
Yeah.
That scene where we see him just, at the side of the building after he's realised they've packaged him as a commercial entity and they're shipping him versions of him out to everywhere. The fact that this pure being, then has to almost kill himself. It's just so bleak.
It is bleak.
Yeah. And I thought they could have ended it there, when he is submerged in that helicopter looking at the blue fairy.
That is exactly what I have always felt about this film.
The Ferris wheel crushes him and he's trapped there.
Yeah.
And he's just wishing...
Because we've mentioned this before, because you mentioned it because Terry Gilliam had pointed it out to you on a YouTube interview, that he answers all of his questions and leaves nothing ambiguous.
Yeah.
I would have been seriously impressed with Spielberg, I think, if he had left it there, because it just left all of the questions floating in the air.
Yeah. Well, so Spielberg got asked this question on that Spielberg on Spielberg documentary that came out in 2007, and he said the decision to do that time jump 2,000 years in the future, like I said, was Kubrick's.
Right.
And Kubrick wrote these scenes in the future and wanted it to end that way. And Spielberg said, I thought that decision was right, and I would have done it that way even if I didn't have the blueprints from Kubrick as well. So he thinks it was the right thing to do. I think by ending it there, you would have had a clearer message.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make it about the bleakness of humanity, make it about the bleakness of humanity, leave it there.
Yeah.
Make it half an hour shorter.
Yeah.
And
because it goes on for far too long after that. I really, just something which really bugs me, I do not like the look of those aliens.
They remind to be a little bit of some of the Close Encounter
aliens. But for some reason I can relate to those a bit more than these.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if it's to do with the early days of CGI or whatever.
Sure.
Like
Honestly,
in an already unrelatable kind of
Yeah.
character piece, like we've just been talking about, because we're talking about a robot and not talking about a real human character.
Yeah.
To then match that with a CGI. Okay, fine. I guess it has some sort of figurative form. It's got arms and legs,
Yeah.
a little torso, and a head.
Yes.
Beyond that, it's not relatable.
No, but I honestly I didn't mind them too much. They didn't bother me.
I remember not liking that, even as a sort of 15-year-old.
No.
It's like it feels weirdly out of place. Actually,
Yeah.
it's a whole different type of sci-fi movie.
Yes.
That Alien is from.
There is an amalgamation of different sci-fi movies in it, because like you mentioned, yes, there's that sort of very futuristic sci-fi CGI that represents.
Yeah.
And then you got very 80s CGI. I thought of Tron.
Yes.
When when those bikers are trying to capture the robots.
Yes, or the Warriors.
Yeah,
or,
exactly. Yeah.
What's it called? The Mel Gibson road movie.
Mad Max.
Mad Max.
Mad Max. Yeah. But you know the blue and the red biker, those games in Tron, that really reminded me of that.
Yeah.
And then like you said, Blade Runner as well, with the scenes,
Yeah.
especially the ones in the sex place.
Yeah.
Whatever that's called.
Brothel.
No, the sex city.
Yeah.
What's it called? Rouge. Is it called Rouge City?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So because we're going through it sort of step by step. Now we're talking a lot about like the emotion of the story, I think, versus like the quite heavy themes.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, this is very dystopian in terms of world and character and human existence. Everything is doomed.
Yeah.
So I've always sort of thought, like, especially in that first section where we're trying to set up an emotional bond and all this kind of stuff, I feel like it would have been better to have not had that first board meeting / lecture room at the beginning, and focus much more on seeing the real mother with her real son before he has his accident or whatever ends him in that sort of freezer.
Yeah. If you hadn't played the real son, as being a brat, or a bit of just a bit annoying.
Yeah. It would have been interesting.
That makes
more
it more
of
interesting.
More of a character development if he was nice to begin with.
Yeah.
Even before some. Do we even know what the accident was that ended up him in his sort of sci-fi hospital?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't
say, because it's all done in a montage, done far too quickly.
Yeah.
And so their sacrifices. They're basically they're putting story ahead of emotion.
No, I know what you mean.
They're getting the plot point across because they feel like we need to know it. It's like, but actually we want to feel it, I think.
Yes. Agreed.
So then we identify much more with the mother, and we understand on a basic human level, like, she's missing her son. She's longing for something. Yeah, she has this, maternal instinct running through her, which she's not able to express.
She seems very resistant to the idea when David comes along for the first time, and it seems that the decision for David arriving and him to imprint on her happens actually very, very quickly.
Yeah, it does.
And I don't really see the emotional steps that would need to happen as much in order for that to be the case.
Again, it happens too quickly. It's because he does his creepy laugh, and suddenly she thinks, "Okay, yes, I'm gonna choose to bond with this kid."
Because he's being very robotic when he hasn't imprinted, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
He's very much like, this is a robot.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that the robot would make so much of an impact on her in order for her to make that irreversible decision.
Yeah.
Without, however, seeing, like you said before,
well, we feel like we don't see
more
her
of a relationship with the previous son beforehand. Yeah.
We don't see her psychological journey.
No, you're absolutely right.
It would have worked better if the real son did something.
Yeah.
While he was, before he went into some sort of coma, and then
David
did something similar, and suddenly we see something clicked.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I would have done it.
Yeah. Well, famous filmmaker Jay Dawson. Yeah. Exactly. Spielberg, if you need a call, want some advice, just no, I completely agree with that.
Because then, from a audience point of view, you're showing, not telling, aren't you? And you're like, I understand her logic. I can see what got her to the point where she wanted a mechanical son.
That scene, however, when David imprints, is very impressive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because it goes from a close-up of Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a close-up of the mother. I've forgotten her name. What's
Frances O'Connor, is it?
Frances O'Connor, that's right.
Yeah.
She's very good, by the way.
Yeah.
And then, she's saying the words, which is going to cue this imprinting.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Haley Joel Osment's face. And it's very difficult to say what's changed. You just know something has.
Yeah.
And that's just sort of great acting.
Really good. Yeah. I think the acting is the thing that elevates this to something very good.
And I just wish the sort of story could enable the acting to make this a great film.
Yeah,
it's a good film.
Yeah.
I just feel like the story let the acting slide a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Did you get emotional during? Because I think the film's aim is to tug on the heartstrings quite a lot. Did this make you feel anything?
It didn't, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I felt like I could watch it and I could feel like I can see what they're trying to get at emotionally, but I'm on the outside of it. I'm not in the world.
Yeah. And I think this has worked. I think this definitely does work for some people, but I'm with you. For me, although I could appreciate the excellent acting, it didn't connect with me on an emotional level.
Yeah.
I
felt like, so I know that, one of the things which makes Haley Joel Osment's character uncanny, because I've already mentioned it, no blinking.
Yeah.
So I felt like, once he was imprinted, I just felt like it would have worked better if he suddenly was much more human by doing the little nuancey things which we do, which is blinking and your eyes move to the side when you think and all of this kind of stuff. But
again, maybe they're trying to make you still realise that no, he hasn't become a real boy.
Yes.
He is still a machine.
Yes, he's still missing that final part.
Yeah. Now, when he gets abandoned by his mum, this starts the whole sort of next phase, this second act, where it's this sort of fairy tale adventure where he's trying to find the blue fairy.
Yeah.
And this is where the sort of Pinocchio references. This is where this sort of tries to mirror Pinocchio. And it mirrors Pinocchio in such a, almost like, it mirrors Pinocchio in a very clear narrative structure where almost everything that happens, beat for beat, happens in some degree in AI.
Yes, it does.
So we've got Jiminy Cricket, who is the teddy.
Yeah.
We've got the Pleasure Island, which is the Rouge City.
Yeah.
Which is very much like the sort of the place of decadence.
Yeah. Would that mean Jude Law is those? Remember in Pinocchio, you have the fox and the other kind of cat that lead him astray. Remember, and they take advantage of him. Is that who he would be?
Well, I don't think, because I think Jude Law is actually...
He's quite friendly,
He's quite friendly, and I don't think he's not... I don't think he's taking advantage of him at all, but whether he plays that sort of role...
I think he's another Jiminy Cricket, isn't he? He's another helper, really.
He is a helper, yeah.
And I know we're talking about great acting, but I have to admit, it just is something a bit boring about Jude Law.
Really? I thought he did really well in this.
It was a good character, and
I thought he became more Cockney as the movie went on.
Yeah, but there is something just a bit boring about Jude Law.
I disagree. I think he was good. I think
he's really good in Talented Mr. Ripley. He got nominated or won an Oscar, Best Supporting Actor Oscar. And he was genuinely very good, but pretty much everything else,
I think he's
very boring.
He does very well at acting. He acts very robotic in this.
That's true.
I like the fact that Jude Law's character, Gigolo Joe, we're talking about here, he's very on brand for his purpose.
Yes.
He's always talking about sex. The way he sees the world is in the context of his primary purpose, and I thought that was good, very well written, and sort of made sense for his character.
Yes.
Did you notice there was a sex club called Throb?
No, I didn't. No.
Why would you go there? It's the worst name for a sex club.
Yeah, it's not very appealing. One of my favourite shots is, and it feels quite Kubrick-esque actually, is that shot of the bridge, and halfway through the sort of suspension bridge is a open mouth that you have to drive through.
Yes, yeah.
There's something about the fact that it's architectural and a human aspect to it, which feels very Kubrick-esque.
And I actually turned to you in the movie and said, that shot looks like something from A Clockwork Orange.
Yes, because it makes you think of, remember the Karuva milk bar in A Clockwork Orange, where you have the white statues, of naked women and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But also, when they go to the car and they're all in the car together, there's a scene in Clockwork where all the droogs are in the car.
Yes.
And they're all really excited and they're driving, and that felt very much like it.
Yeah, the framing was very similar.
Was very similar. And there was another number of shots in the whole movie which reminded me of various different Kubrick movies. Like this whole film was a homage, like an in memoriam tribute to Stanley Kubrick. So a few things that I wrote down, like Jude Law's dancing was very much like Malcolm McDowell's dancing when he's dancing around.
Fred Astaire.
Fred Astaire.
Yeah,
exactly.
Malcolm McDowell is parodying Fred Astaire, isn't
exactly.
he? In Singing in the Rain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that very much felt like that. There is a bit where he's doing it in the rain. Jude Law's even doing the dancing in the rain. I think.
Yeah. See, when you mentioned that it's also in A Clockwork Orange, you're right. Yeah. A Kubrick movie. Yeah, I hadn't really made that connection.
A lot of the more sci-fi shots with the lighting felt again very 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Martin and David are being read to by their mother on a lake that looked like something from Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, it's true.
And what else did I write? There's when he goes to cut his mum's hair with the scissors and he's approaching the bed. That's like the red rum scene in The Shining.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
So there are some shot-for-shots of going through the classics of Kubrick movies in this.
Yeah, it's true.
Which makes me like the movie even more. The fact that this is done as a sort of a tribute after he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Talked a lot about the problems that we have for this movie. But there are one of the things I really like about it is some of the cinematography.
Yeah. Some
of the shots that they managed to get in this are just remarkable. And the visual effects are very, very good for that time as well.
Yeah, no, there's certain shots and images which are brilliant in this.
Yeah.
It does feel very set-like, I would say.
Okay.
So, for example, even when they're in the forest.
Yeah.
That doesn't...
It does feel a bit setty, yes.
That does not feel like a real forest. Because of the way like the light falls on it.
True.
Things like...
Yeah.
I like the idea of... And I like... No, what I mean is I like the image of, whatever they say, the moon is rising or whatever.
Yes.
And then the big moon comes up over the hill, and then you've got Brendan Gleeson riding it like a hot air balloon in his own little cage thing at the bottom.
Yes.
The idea of that is
that is very cool.
Quite cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that works in reality, but
the shot I was thinking of that I was like, wow, that's amazing, is when he's gone to David's gone to Manhattan. He's seen the sort of other children that they're marketing, and then there's a sort of shell of his own face, and he looks at the image that he saw first, that sort of logo of his company, through a mask of his own face.
Yes.
I don't know why, or what that means, but as an image, that was quite disturbing.
Yes.
And it was very, very good.
Yeah. It's got something to do with the soul being separate from the physical, hasn't it, I think?
Sure. Anything else that you want to talk about? Because I think we've talked about most things.
I felt like we could have really done with a scene where we see David really make a connection between like his mum, his mother, and the Blue Fairy.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that the initial connection was brushed over quite quickly.
Yes.
And then suddenly when we got into the next act of the story, suddenly that became his entire motivation.
Yes.
He didn't even really mention the mother. He talked about the Blue Fairy.
Yeah.
It's like, but we need to see the connection that he thinks this is how it's going to lead to his mother.
And that doesn't happen till a lot later, does it?
No.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
I felt like they left the important information out and become obsessed with the journey of how to get there, and not actually like the actual MacGuffin itself, which is the mother's love, you might say, is sort of the MacGuffin or the thing you're striving for.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Which makes me feel like the film lost focus. Is what I'm getting at.
It would be really interesting to see what the movie would be like if it had been just created by Kubrick or just created by Spielberg, and whether you get a superior product at the end of it. Yeah, I really don't know, but it's really interesting.
It is interesting,
and this is one of the most interesting sort of Spielberg movies I think we've watched because of that. That influence. Yeah.
Nice.
It feels like we've been talking for a week about it, so very sorry to the listener at home.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. As always, if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from, that would be really good. Help us get our profile out a little bit more. You can follow us on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast or follow us on Instagram at The Bigger Boat Podcast. If you want to email us about anything we've said, or want to contribute anything at all, or ask us any questions, we'd actually be really interested to hear what you think about AI itself as a movie. You can always email us on
thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com.
Brilliant. We will see you next week for Minority Report, which I don't think I've seen since it came out. So I'm quite excited to see it again, because I remember it being very good.
Yeah, I really liked it, Minority Report.
Yeah, really like it. Brilliant. Cool. We will see you then.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.